that. Now getting everybody to abide by that, that's a different story.
Well, I think you've said so many great things because when you are in a crisis, you're making such a great point. You're in a high emotional state. So if you've already built a brand that is based on being prepared, resilient, and responsive, if you're in an emotional state, you don't have to worry about that because your brand is already responsive, resilient, and prepared. It's okay if you're emotional because your brand is already built to be resilient. But if it's not, then you really are about to be even more emotional because, like, nobody knows what to do, right? Because I mean, I haven't prepared for this. So that's why you're immediately gonna look for some kind of support, and you might even make an even more rash decision than before. So, like for a mid-sized business, especially in these industries, hospitality or heavily regulated, a reputation is everything. So you're very visible. So without any kind of cushion that like corporations have, you really want to make your preparations. You want to have something. It's non-negotiable, really. So
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I'm your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group. And today I have with me a very special guest, Brittney Bogues. Welcome to the podcast.
hi, happy to be here.
Yes, I'm glad to dive in a very nice, well-rounded topic that we're going to get into today about crisis proofing. So before we dig too deep there, Brittney, why don't you go ahead and give the audience a little bit of background about yourself and your company?
Sure. So I am Brittney Bogues. I am the founder and chief innovation officer at Bogues Group. We are a PR and branding firm, and we work with mid-sized businesses in the regulated industry as well as hospitality and sports.
Nice, nice. And how long have you guys been in business now?
So we've been in business for 7 years, and we really focus on helping our clients cut through the noise and make an impact through authentic storytelling and creative brand activations.
Nice, nice. So what led you down this path? Like what got you here to this point?
Yeah, so 15 years ago, I became an entrepreneur, but really that journey started about 4 years before that when my mom's friend introduced the world of communications to me. I had no clue that it even existed. She was a publicist and she let me intern with her at WKYS. It was a national radio station, and I was hooked after that. So I went to school, got my master's, and started my first business. I did not succeed there. I worked in the nonprofit space, became a better leader, and then launched my company that I have now. And here I am 7 years later talking to you.
Nice, nice. I love that. And I love how you mentioned interning because that's kind of like a lost term for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why there's like a thing now where I can just go do things. I don't really need to like have a mentor or shadow. I mean, by all means, if somebody is that exemplary, I'm go for it. But I'm glad to hear you say like you actually interned and learned and studied and really got the fundamentals right before you kind of went out on your own.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I am a big proponent of mentors. I have mentors now. I mean, I constantly have mentors for not just my business, but for my life. I feel like
Yes.
they are essential for growth. You don't know everything. I will never know everything in life.
You are exactly right. I feel like I've been telling people I'm on the journey of Jennifer 3.0 at this point. So I have entered past the 40 club, and now I'm like, oh, this is like the third version of me now. But I'm learning a lot, entering into new business ventures and new activities in my life right now. you're right. Like you never should stop learning because you don't know everything. And I think it makes me a more well-rounded human being, being so open-minded to wanting to learn and wanting to digest something I haven't been exposed to before.
Agreed. It's one of our core values in my business. Movement mindset. It's another term for growth mindset. So it's one of our core values that we stick with.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So with that in mind, talk to me about communications. Like communications has many aspects. Some people may lump it into marketing. We have digital marketing, there's public relations. Talk to me about some of the aspects that you all tend to focus on and why.
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, I have my master's in communications. Like you said, it's very broad, but our business specifically, we really focus on public relations and crisis communications. I love public relations specifically, and I really love crisis communications. I find them both to be very intriguing and just really fun because they really are based in storytelling and really getting to know your client, their background, their goals, and really the true impact of what they want to have on their audience, where they want to go, how they want to move their audience, and it's really fun. It's fascinating to me.
Okay. Love it. Love it. So with the communications route, what are the most fascinating aspects that you have, I guess, dealt with when it comes to communications? I'm sure you have some great stories to tell or horrific stories to tell, but what are some of the best aspects of it that you like?
Yeah, so I think right now we're really focusing on, especially in the regulated industries and hospitality and sports, one of the biggest myths when it comes to like crisis proofing is that you want to focus on it when the crisis is happening. But I mean, that's definitely a myth. That's too late. If you are attacking the problem or talking about communications when the crisis is happening, it's too late. You want to be proactive in those situations. You want to be talking to me when things are good, when there's not a problem. That's when you truly should be talking to your PR team or even considering to have PR. I think that's one of the biggest myths about public relations that people kind of overlook.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I'll say that's a bar. That is definitely a bar because we're creatures of habit, right? As humans on this plane, and we're just sometimes procrastinators or it's just not at the top of the list of importance. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, these are things that you want to focus on ahead of time and kind of get your arms around it. So when you are faced with an issue, one, your emotional state may be on high alert and you may not be thinking clearly. So do it at a time when you can be calm, right? And be present. And that's the only thing you have to focus on. So I do agree with that. Now, getting everybody to abide by that, that's a different story.
Well, I think you've said so many great things because when you are in a crisis, you're making such a great point. You're in a high emotional state. So if you've already built a brand that is based on being prepared, resilient, and responsive, if you're in an emotional state, you don't have to worry about that because your brand is already responsive, resilient, and prepared. It's okay if you're emotional because your brand is already built to be resilient. But if it's not, then you really are about to be even more emotional because, like, nobody knows what to do, right? Because I mean, I haven't prepared for this. So that's why you're immediately gonna look for some kind of support, you know, and you might even make an even more rash decision than before. So, like for a mid-sized business, especially in these industries, hospitality or heavily regulated a reputation is everything. So you're very visible. So without any kind of cushion that like corporations have, you really want to make your preparations. You want to have something. It's non-negotiable, really. So I would love to talk about like how I would guide my clients through something like this.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's get into it. So let me say, those are a couple other bars you just dropped there. And I love if you don't have this as a strategy spelled out, you should PRR, because I picked up on preparedness, resilience, and what was it, responsiveness?
Mhm.
So I picked up on PRR. I love it. So brand that if you haven't. But yeah, let's get into it. So let's say me, Jennifer 3.0, CEO of the MJW Group, and I'll use a real example that we faced about 2 years ago. We had a team member um, kind of talking negatively about our business with our client.
Oh,
And
wow.
it impacted our relationship with our client. That individual clearly knew what they were doing. And it was a very emotional period for us to go through that whole PR debacle to kind of save face with our client, as well as still maintain an employee employer relationship,
For
right,
sure.
as this person was still working here. So yeah, we dealt with that type of scenario, and I don't know if I'm still over it. I mean, I had to forgive, right, but you don't forget these things, right, because you have to make sure you're prepared to respond to things like this if it happens again. But that was a good example that I clearly can remember us going through as a young business and not really knowing how to handle it because it just caught us off guard, like you're saying.
And that plays into like one part of the chain of the scenario, because like, okay, that's the people portion, because there's three parts of this, because there's one part that's the scenario planning, because all right, one part is like, for instance, whenever there's any kind of crisis or anything, think about the type of scenario you're in. There's going to be, how do I say this? Like, for instance, if you're in a hotel scenario, or if you're like, we had a amusement park come to us, there's gonna be, how do I say this? Something consistent in the culture. How do I say this? There is always going to be something that's going to happen in an amusement park. There's going to be a breakdown in what do you say, like a one of the appliances. There's going to be a breakdown on a machine one day. Like there's going to be something
Yeah,
that's not going to work. Similar, like in your business, there's going to be an employee that's going to maybe make a mistake on something. There's going
right.
to be something. So that's why you have to do a scenario play out. So as the owner of it, yeah, it sucks. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, but you have to kind of unfortunately do scenario play outs. You know what I mean? So it takes sometimes literally writing out scenarios and mock it out,
Mhm.
doing literally, and even maybe using, now that we have the advantage of it, you didn't have it now. I mean, back then, but you do have it now, using AI. Now that you have AI, using scenarios like,
Mhm.
okay, so if this happens, how can we navigate this? But okay, but now let's say you're going back then, using the little bit of knowledge that you have now, you have a mentor. Okay. What, you've been in the business for 10 years. what uncomfortable situations have you been in? How did you handle it? I'm just saying, like, what resources did you have at that moment
Yeah.
that you could have played out the scenario? Do you get what I'm saying? But that's
Yes.
literally what we would have done. We would have played out the scenarios to give you a template so that you could be like, okay, let's put different templates in place so that moving forward we can safeguard this client and this employee so they will not have access to this client anymore, so that moving forward we won't be able to be in a situation, you know,
Yeah.
we'll be able to set it up in a way that this won't happen. Because I mean, no matter what, you want to grow, you want to scale, you want to see your business in a certain way. So no matter what, I'm sure that you have to have an employee engage with clients in a certain
Yeah.
aspect, you know? So you're going to have to figure out a way to engage them, but there are going to be ways that you can create templates and scenarios that will minimize the impact. And so that's what we would do. We would set up scenarios so that minimize the impact. You can start, how do I say this? You can start preparing and being more proactive and start assuming what the scenario is going to be before it happens. And that again minimizes the impact. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. I love that. And bars again.
and
I love that. You're exactly right because that's what we ended up doing. Unbeknownst of that's what we should have done. We found ourselves doing scenario role playing and laying out like, okay, once we got over the okay, how did we get here? And we actually got through it. It was like, okay, what can we do to be adverse, right, to this happening again, and putting some things in place, whether it's, more soft skills or more communications between a client and yourself as a team member of the MJW group, what not to do, what to do, right? Giving some boundaries per se. So we did actually put that in place. So you're exactly right. Because of what we went through, once we got over it and, was able to come up for air and breathe, it allowed us to think about, okay, how can we avoid this, right? Potentially happening again. But now it makes me want to go through some more scenarios. Like you mentioned, think about I know we don't want to think about all the things that could go wrong, but like come up with some themes or just maybe little things that little red flags sometimes we notice and we're just like, I'm just gonna, tuck that away. That won't happen here. Like it could. So
exactly. And
yeah,
it's literally, it's not, you don't want to expect the worst, but it's sometimes just literally just and like I said, like every industry has predictable vulnerabilities. Like for
right.
hotels, it might be a data breach, or customer safety. For sports, it could be player misconduct. Like it's, it's for HR, it could just be little internal
Mhm.
cultural things. Like it could be anything. It could be little things, but you just want to have responsible templates and things like that, just so you can cover yourself, but also so you can have an easy go-to, and something that can repeat so that you
Mhm.
predict your impact, and something that is easy to repeat. You want to literally minimize the impact, have something predictable, and literally make it easy for yourself.
Love that. Love that. So once we have these templates and we've thought of all the ways, all of the scenarios, what happens after that?
Yeah, so you and that also gives you something to go off of, because you can personalize it when you need to. And then after that, you have a clear chain of command. Especially with the mid-sized team, you often still have a people that are wearing a couple hats. Not as many as a smaller team, but still people are wearing a few hats. And during a crisis, you want to be able to identify one voice and one leader. You really want to have people know what their role is and when they need to act. So it's got to be clear who is the spokesperson, who's going to be issuing the message to the media, who's going to be issuing the message to the team, and make sure there cannot be any confusion during chaos, because it only fuels it. So making sure everybody knows their role and it's clearly identified in all the communication.
Okay, got it. Got it. So
Yeah.
once we have that, I'm gonna say the Olivia Pope white hat person, right? That that does damage control and
Yes.
becomes the shield essentially for everybody else. Once they've delivered the message, I guess the message that they're delivering, how do you come up with that copy? How do you make it cohesive and congruent no matter what the audience is? Like you said, it's still the same. So there isn't any confusion, no matter if it's the client or the team or the general public. How do you make it cohesive?
Yeah. So, okay. So, depending on your team, it's either you as the CEO. If you are a mid-sized business, so a lot of our clients in the regulated industry, they usually have legal. So they have legal. We also prepare the message. So typically, us as the PR team, we prepare the message and we work with legal and HR to fine tune it. And then we help put out the messaging. So just to kind of depends on your team, the size of your team. Yeah, so it kind of just depends on your team. You work with that and you fine tune it. Make sure you really look at it. You want to be transparent, because that was going to be my next point. Speed and transparency matter, because that equals trust. And in these type of situations, and I'm going to repeat that, trust is everything, because with trust, you build credibility. And in these type of situations, you only get one shot at keeping and maintaining the trust with your customers. So you really want to like maintain it, because if you do a really good, you can make a mistake and you can still keep a customer. But if you mess up, you lose them.
Yeah, and you're right, because that happened with us. Like exactly out of that situation, we were able to remain in a good standing and good relationship with the client because we had already established that long before, we brought this other person in. So you're right, transparency is and trust is always important. Like I think for businesses, you're right. Like you stand on that. Your integrity is always going to be tested, but you have to make sure you stand on that transparency and that trust because that's why people do business with you.
And people
Um,
like accountability. People love
mhm.
accountability and people like transparency. And also you can be transparent and also be honest, but also you don't have to and you should over communicate, but you don't have to say too much. And so there's a fine line in that too. Like I think there's a way to make sure you get your point across, you say your messaging, but make sure you roll it out. I think that you don't have to, say too much, because there's a thing about fact finding. You have to make sure you're still gathering all the information. So it's okay to not say it all at once, because again, you're still discovering all parts of what's happening in the crisis, right?
Mhm.
So don't overpromise. Don't ever do that, because you're
Mhm.
still trying to figure it all out yourself. Okay. So
Mhm.
make sure, because especially in regulated industries, with the clients that we work with, we're working with like airports and in the hospitality, and so often you really want to lawyer up and stay silent, but we don't want to always do that. We want to be smart and communicate without compromising the legal strategies. So, and you want to be fast, because sometimes if you're slow, it has a bad perception, and perception is everything. So you want to be quick, you want to be first, you want to be factual, and you want to be human. And that's really key.
Bars again. I love that. And now it makes sense. Like as you're talking now, how I see and I've seen issues or crises happen and how people respond. It is very fast, right? We have press releases, there's press conferences, right? Old school. Now we got digital media where we
Yeah.
can amplify it even faster,
Yeah.
right? So once those things are delivered right to the masses, to the public, to the audiences, and then I always wanted to know at the bottom, you'll usually see for inquiries, call this number or reach
Mhm.
out to this person. Once that happens, what happens with that? Do people generally
Yeah.
follow up? Do they want more
Yes.
information?
Yeah, that's how people literally, when people call that number, people reach people like me and they want quotes and they want follow-ups. And that's literally how you see the story in other
Like
publications.
play out. Yeah.
And that's how you see the follow-up stories in other publications for sure. And so people definitely reach out and follow up. And yeah, that's why we do it. And it's great. So I
So
appreciate it. I love the
fascinating.
follow-ups. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it. And so it's fascinating. This is why I love media. That's why I love storytelling. That's why I love what I do. It's so fun for me.
Ding, ding, ding. Another bar. I got it. Okay.
It's all connecting. It's so funny when people
Yes.
realize it. They're like, "Oh, this is what you do." Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes, my gears are turning. Like I'm primarily a left brain person, right? So that's why this podcast exists because I'm like, okay, I see what you mean by the storytelling piece, right?
Mhm.
So, hey, for more media inquiries or for more questions, contact XYZ. So I
Yeah.
contact, and it's like, that's how I get the next story, like the next piece of the puzzle. And it just keeps going on. Now, when does that story end or does it ever end?
It doesn't have to because there's different angles. It just depends. But I mean, with the news cycles now, I mean, stories in die. They're like 24-hour news cycles. So I mean, it just depends if new stuff kind of happens. But what I was gonna say, it's so funny because like now in today's media, you can tell when people handle a crisis really well and when people don't handle a crisis well. And like you, as somebody that's not even in the media, you can even tell when people don't handle a crisis well versus when they do, which I think is funny because like I'm in this space and I obviously can tell when someone handles something not like doesn't do a great job. But I think it's funny when someone that's not in this space can even tell because like I saw the wheels turning for you about it, but it's like when I think now with the fresh eyes, when you look at certain things now, you'll see like, oh gosh, like this person, like they don't seem very transparent, or like, oh gosh, why did they wait so
Yeah.
long to apologize? Like when you start seeing stuff now, like just think of some of the biggest scandals recently or anything. Just look at how long it took for people to respond and you're like, oh, why did they take so long? And then you can see how it like didn't play in their favor. Just yeah.
Yeah, I was reading an article this morning about one of our favorite retailers that people have not been acquiring any of their purchases there. So it's kind of like a story that's kind of been stagnant. Like there really hasn't been much information from the owners of that retailer as to why these things are happening or what is their plan going forward. So I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
But yes, I can definitely see that now. And like, yeah, I am on the outside. I'm a consumer of that retailer, or I was in the past. But yeah, me being like an analytical left brain person, I'm literally connecting the process like, hey, that they missed a step or they deliberately missed a step. Sometimes that could be a choice, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a choice
Wow.
for sure. And you'll look at other brands like Ben and Jerry's, who has a great PR strategy. Like they stay true to their culture. You'll see they stay true to their brand through and through. It's very cool.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love this. Um, so what are one or two things that you've had to rewire about you've been in business for a while now, almost 10 years, right?
Thank you.
What are one or two things you had to totally change or rewire that you weren't doing in the beginning when you started?
Oh, yeah. So when I first started, I was not, and this is probably something that's going to make you really excited. I didn't really know anything about like SOPs or like anything. I didn't really, yeah, nothing about SOPs, standard operating procedures. What were they? I didn't know. So that was a big thing for me. And I didn't really focus on my numbers or metrics or anything like that. So now, like, 15 years as an entrepreneur, 7 years in this business, I know what those are and I live by them and I train my team on them, and they're all I really care about. And my numbers are all I really care about now. So I had to rewire my brain. I had to change how I thought about a lot of things. I had to learn how to delegate, and I don't have to be a part of everything. So that was really hard for me. So
Mhm.
I had to rewire a lot.
Okay. I love how you came to the bright side and think about your numbers and processes. I love it. Um, what would you say is maybe not the most important, but what has been a very important lesson that you've learned in business? 15 years all together.
Wow. Something I've learned, important lesson. There's so many
I
important
know.
lessons I've learned in business. I don't know if I can just nail it down to one. I mean, I will say never stop learning. Um, Time is a valuable asset. So, I mean, use it so wisely. Your team is so important. So treat them really well. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I love it. And I'm sure everyone listening can interpret that like many different ways. Cause yes, time is important. Your team can definitely make or break. Like I said, we dealt with a couple of issues, so it does happen. And yeah, I agree. I agree with those life lessons as well. So all right. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, Brittany, as we wrap up today?
I would just say, thank you so much for having me. This has been, I mean, I got to talk about what I love doing for clients that I love working with. And I would say the most important thing about when you're working for yourself is get to do the work that you love to do and work for people that you love working with, because that's truly what matters. Yeah, at the end of the day, because if you're going to be working for yourself, at least be doing work that you want to be doing.
Love it. Love it. Bars again. Bars, gems, nuggets, all of the above.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brittany, for being a part of the Analytical Rewired podcast. Everyone, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and we will catch you on the next episode. See ya. Bye.
Bye.